So today, we're going to finish up what we were doing last time, which was talking about how we solve problems when we have a sophisticated beta-delta discounter, and then see if we can gain some insight. Now, a lot of this is going to seem annoyingly untimely, since I've already sent you off to do a problem set in which you needed to know how to do this, and my hope is that problem set actually help you to figure it out. My main goal for today is to point out some of the insights that we can derive from these simple models of naivete and sophistication. Of course, I didn't need the functionality of an actual stylus for my laptop today. Why would I think I did? And then we'll start talking about a couple of applications of beta-delta modeling in terms of trying to explain real-world things that we observe and seeing how the models do that. Yes? It's not on the screen yet. Excellent. Is there anything else I've done wrong so far today? There we go. Great. And we still have Alain de Jambry's notes on the board, too. How wonderful. Oh, God. All I can say for myself is that I used to be this irritable a lot more frequently. Okay. Okay. So just to go back over what we were doing last time, we had the situation where we have a student who can see a movie with a coupon in any one of these 4 periods. They're a beta-delta, what some people call a beta-beta-hat delta discounter to take into account the issue of naivete versus sophistication. So they're timing consistent. I'm sorry, they have present bias preferences represented by beta, and they're sophisticated because their beta hat is equal to beta. And we're ignoring delta right now by setting it equal to 1, which is not a statement about what we believe to be true about this person's psychology. It's just a mathematical simplification. Okay, so we had this useful table. One of the things that came up over and over again in office hours and on the forum and so forth is that when you do this table, these columns are not defined by when you get the payoff. They're defined by when you take the action. So what is the undiscounted utility of taking the action in period 0, period 1, period 2, period 3? And the problem set, what you saw was that those undiscounted utilities involve payoffs, like if you play the game in round 1, for example, you got an immediate payoff in round 1, and you got a delayed cost because you weren't going to sleep as much. And those both show up in the column for t equals 1, which is if you play the game in time 1, not the payoffs you get in time 1. So that's the table that we had. And we said, I'll just very quickly walk through the strategy for the sophisticated again. So it's all about backwards induction. From the perspective of, when she's at t equals 0, she looks forward to see what she will do in time 2 if she hasn't gone to the movie by then. And of course the answer is that she will go to the movie in period 2 if she hasn't already because of her impatience. And so she rules out going in 3 as an option in the earlier periods, looks forward knowing that that's what her period 1 self will rule out going in 3. She then foresees that her period 1 self will actually only be comparing 1 and 2 and will prefer to go to 1 because, again, of temptation, and therefore rules out 2 in the earlier period, and therefore standing at the beginning of time at t equals 0, she's only comparing 0 and 1, and because of temptation she prefers 0. So she goes to the worst movie and she does what we call pre-procuration. So once again, she's correctly pessimistic. Okay? The naive is incorrectly optimistic about their future self-control. The sophisticate is consistent, will always be correctly pessimistic about her future self-control, and as a result, she will rule out unfeasible or infeasible courses of action. Sometimes that helps her, but in this case, it hurts her, which is a little bit surprising. It's not clear to me. So we crank up these models and we look at the results, and most of the time you probably notice that the results of economic models that you've been taught are kind of obvious, right? Like if you raise the price of something, people will buy less of it. It's like, yeah, I didn't really need a mathematical model to convince me of that. But sometimes they provide surprising intuitions, and we have to sort of puzzle through and say, is this coming up? Why would knowing yourself better be harmful? Is that because the model's wrong? Or is that a really kind of interesting insight about human decision-making and the consequences of human decision-making that we should really be paying attention to? And it's a little unclear to me, in this case of this particular model, in this particular insight, which is that sometimes sophistication about future self-control can hurt you. It's a little unclear to me whether that's something we should be taking seriously or whether it's a flaw in the model. Okay? Let me come back to that point in a minute. As a general principle, if we take that insight seriously, as a general principle, you can determine whether being sophisticated is going to help or hurt in the following way, sort of intuitively. Okay, if future misbehavior, the possibility of future misbehavior, raises the cost of current misbehavior, then sophistication helps in overcoming short-run impatience. So, for example, in the case where the student had a problem set to do and was going to have to miss one of the movies, which was the procrastination problem that we started with, the sophisticate looks forward and says, oh, I'd like to procrastinate by 1 period, which would cost me a little, but I can see that in fact I will misbehave in the future and procrastinate again, and therefore miss the Johnny Depp movie and put off the problem set till the last period and miss the Johnny Depp movie, which means that if I don't get this out of the way now, if I allow myself to misbehave now and be impatient now, it's dramatically increasing, right, my future misbehavior is increasing the cost of not doing the problem set now, because it means I won't do it in period 1, I'll do it in period 2, and I'll get the worst possible outcome. So that's a situation where knowing yourself, oh, I know myself, I won't be patient in the future, I'll just do it now, helps. But if future misbehavior and being able to foresee your future misbehavior actually lowers the cost of current misbehavior, then sophistication can actually hurt. Alice? Is there any empirical evidence to show that sophistication works against you? And has anyone ever actually done an experiment where they hand out coupons for movies? I'm not aware of any, but that doesn't mean it's not out there. Yeah, I think this is a pretty wide open question. Yeah, if you email me that question, I will see what I can dig up. Did you have a question, Pedro?
So can you go to a higher degree of sophistication? Everything can happen.
Can we do what?
Can you go to a higher degree of sophistication?
Well, so Pedro's question is, can we go to a higher degree of sophistication where this doesn't happen? Let me actually respond to your question just after going through this next bullet point. So I just want to point out how the movie coupon situation fits this description, where future misbehavior lowers the cost of current misbehavior. With the movie coupon, what the person wants to do and what the naive thinks that they'll do is to be patient all the way until the 3rd period and see the Johnny Depp movie. Okay? The sophisticate foresees that in period 2 she will quote-unquote misbehave and be impatient and not wait for the Johnny Depp movie, which means that if she misbehaves now, she's not actually giving up the Johnny Depp movie. She's actually only, and in fact she won't go to the movie in the 2nd period, she'll go in the 1st period. So she's actually giving up not the best movie. She knows she's actually only giving up sort of the 3rd best movie. So in this case, sophistication and being correctly pessimistic about future misbehavior means that the cost cost, the perceived cost of misbehaving now is actually much less than if she had not foreseen that future misbehavior. So notice, and I'll come back to Pedram's question, notice that what's going on here is that the sophisticate, in both cases, is engaging in this backwards induction, right? Projecting herself forward into the future and figuring out what she will do in the second to last round, or in the case of the problem set question, even the last round, and then dialing back one period, knowing that, what will I do in this period, dialing back, da-da-da-da. Now, over 3 or 4 periods, like we've seen in these simple models, maybe, but a lot of these decisions are over many more periods than that, and many more complicated decisions. So what we're actually assuming about the sophisticate is a new sort of, a new kind of rationality, and it's the third of the 3 big categories of rationality that I talked about at the beginning of the semester. We see that the naive and the sophisticate violate rational preferences, right? Because we get preference reversals. When things are in the future, they like A over B, but when it comes to the present, they like B over A. That's a violation of transitivity in some sense, right? Well, not in some sense. It is a violation of transitivity. The naive also violates rational expectations, because rational expectation says that you should have a correct knowledge of the distribution of uncertain outcomes, and also that you should have a correct prediction of how you will respond to circumstances in the future. And the naive fails to predict their own future responses, right? So they mispredict the future in very important ways. So they violate rational expectations. The sophisticate, that's Michaela right there, or well, it's a pile of problem sets for her students. The sophisticate, in order for us to believe this model about the sophisticate, we have to assume a third type of rationality. Now, I'm not aware of a standard convention of what to call this type of rationality, so I've given it a name for the purposes of this class. Okay? And it's a problematic name because I think other people understand this term very differently than the way I'm using it. And I'll come back to this later on, but we have to believe that the sophisticate is able, I don't exactly know quite even how to use this term. We have to make an assumption of rational self-interest. Now, what this means is the point is not to focus on the self, right? Her self-interest could include the outcomes of others. She could be perfectly altruistic, generous, she could be a mother bear. What I mean when I say rational self-interest is that she's able to figure out what side of her bread has butter on it. She's able to figure out what outcome is actually best for her given her utility function. And her utility function can include absolutely anything. It could be completely perverse, or it could be absolutely wonderful. It could be completely self-centered, or it could be completely altruistic. It doesn't matter at all. What I mean when I talk about rational self-interest is that she's able to sort of compute and figure out, oh, if I make this choice, this will be the outcome for me. And when you have multiple time periods and you have to do this backwards induction, that's quite a lot of math, right? To figure out, if I go to the movie now, this will be the outcome. If I don't go to the movie now, that will be the outcome. And so we have to make this what becomes an increasingly strong assumption about people's ability to figure things out. And I'm calling that rational self-interest because I think that typically when people say, when you get into game theory, for example, or you get into situations that involve computing complicated probabilities using Bayes' law, which we will after the second midterm, people start to talk about, oh, this person's choosing irrationally because they're not maximizing their own self-interest, right? So this is not a rationally self-interested person. The issue is not whether they're self-interested. The issue is whether they are rationally self-interested, whether they are in fact maximizing their own utility function, because sometimes it's just computationally difficult to see how you would do that. Okay? So the sophisticate, we're making this pretty strong assumption that the sophisticate does multiple rounds of backwards induction in sometimes complicated situations. So my answer to your question, Pedram, is what I'm interested in personally, which I've done a little bit of work on, but I kind of need a co-author who knows more math than me to make further headway, is what if she's actually a little bit less sophisticated? Okay? What if she's sophisticated about her future preferences, knows that in the future she will be impatient, but doesn't take the additional cognitive step of also realizing that in the future she will be sophisticated with respect, right? So what if she believes that in the future she's actually a naive? So she knows that she'll be impatient. She correctly predicts her future preferences, but she doesn't really take that extra cognitive step of thinking, yes, and also I will have correct beliefs in the future, as well as having impatience, I'll also be sophisticated, and so I'll have to do all this backwards induction. What if she just does one round of thinking and says, you know what, in the second period, I won't wait, I'll go to the movie. So, but doesn't think, therefore I'll do this in the first period, da, da, da. She just says, you know what, I don't think the naive thinks he'll wait until the third period, I think I'll wait until the second period, now what do I do? So I don't know if that's the right model or not. But I'm interested in seeing whether maybe we're assuming a little bit too much sophistication in this model that might be giving us results that are somewhat counterintuitive. And the other possibility is that, in fact, sophisticates get really badly hurt because they do all these rounds of backwards induction. I don't know the right answer, and so if you'll help me with that math and Powell's runs the field experiment she's currently contemplating, then we'll get an answer to the question. Okay. So this whole issue of awareness, which is about rational expectations, whether people have correct beliefs about the future, doesn't come up in the exponential model because if you don't have beta in there, if you capture all discounting with this constant delta every period, you don't get the time inconsistency, so you don't have to worry about whether or not you predict time inconsistency. That's why one of the many reasons why people like the standard model. Okay, so then we have this question. I mean, I just had this conversation with Pedram about whether or not the model's right. But if we assume the model is at least close to being right, is it really not beneficial to be sophisticated, right? Because you can't actually teach yourself to be sophisticated with respect to your future self-control problems. My own experience is that's a good idea. You should do that. In this theory, it's a little unclear whether that's really a good idea. This is not my thought. This is Botan Kosegi's thought, and I think that there's some validity to it. It seems like there are more real-world tasks of the problem set variety than the movie variety, which is to say more real-world problems where there are opportunities to procrastinate an unpleasant task, potentially with very great consequences, negative consequences, and not as many opportunities to pre-procreate, or not as many really economically relevant opportunities to pre-procreate a pleasant task and thereby miss out on something that could have been really pleasant later on. Okay? Retirement savings, I think, is the big exception. Retirement savings is an example of when do I go to the movie, when do I take my money out. And I think there, and that actually is somewhere where we could potentially look at a test. Do people who we can experimentally identify as sophisticated with respect to their self-control problems in laboratory settings actually do worse at taking money out of the bank instead of saving it for their retirement? And my guess is that the answer is no, that sophisticates actually do a better job with retirement savings. Actually, that's not the right answer, because the reason sophisticates do a better job is because they put their money into accounts they can't take money out of. Right? So we really would want to know, do sophisticates do better when the only savings accounts available to them are ones that they could take money out of if they wanted to? Okay. So this bullet point here is just everything that I was just talking to Pedram about. Do we really think it's right to assume that people can foresee the consequences of their future misbehavior many periods in advance? Okay. I'm going to skip this bullet point. Normatively, really extremely important note, both students end up doing things that are suboptimal, not just from the perspective of their long-term undiscounted preferences. Both students wind up doing things that are suboptimal from the perspective of all their different selves, okay? So the naive student does the problem set in period 2. This was where they were procrastinating, and they procrastinated and missed the Johnny Depp movie. Even though if you look at the table of utilities, or the list of different discounted utilities, you'll find that their period 0 self would have been better off if they'd gone at time 1. Their period 1 self would have been better off if they'd done the problem set at time 1. Their period 1 self would have been better off if they'd done the problem set in period 0. Their period 2 self would have been better off if they'd done it in any time period. So none of these selves actually likes the outcome. Okay? So we can say in this situation unambiguously, it doesn't matter what our standard for judging what's good for you is. You're definitely hurting yourself in a way that you would consistently say, oh my God, no. Like if you asked the naive at time 0, time 1, time 2, if you went in a time machine and said, I've been to your future, you're going to put this problem set off until the Johnny Depp movie. Do you like that or not? Every period they would say, no, I don't like that. That's bad. Please do something about that. Okay? So we can say unambiguously in this situation that this is hurting the person according to their own preferences, according to their own definition of what's in their best self-interest. Similarly, the sophisticate who pre-procreates and goes to the has a coupon and uses it right away instead of waiting, if you go and look at that table of utilities, every single one of herself would have rather gone at a different time. None of herself actually thinks that's a good idea. It's just what she's stuck with. So again, we can unambiguously say these people left to their own devices to do their own utility maximization are failing to maximize their own preferences. Not what we as society think their preferences should be, but their own preferences, even taking impatience into account. Okay, let's skip all that and move on. Some stuff about problem solving, which hopefully by now you've got figured out. You know what, I'm going to skip this. My hope is, I'm sorry I didn't get to this last time. I should have skipped ahead last time. This was my last slide last time. But hopefully you guys have figured some of this stuff out already. There's more. The next problem set, which has now been posted, includes another beta-delta exercise. So you'll have to use these steps once again. Solving the naive forwards, assuming that whatever they decide to do in each period they believe they will follow through on. And then solving the sophisticate backwards, ruling out courses of action that the sophisticate knows she won't take. Okay, now let's move on and talk about a couple of applications of the beta-delta model. I said at the beginning of this section that I said, why does this matter economically? And the two things I put on the table, it matters for a lot of reasons economically. The two things I put on the table were issues having to do with retirement savings and how that affects our Social Security program, our Medicare program, and all the things that we wind up doing as a society to take care of old people who either to make sure that they save for their retirement or to help them out when it turns out that maybe they haven't saved for their retirement. The other thing that I said was that has huge implications for public health, and there's a big overlap, right? Because Medicare is about retirement and it's also about public health. But there are huge implications for public health because individual health often involves trade-offs. In fact, almost always involves trade-offs between either do I eat the burger or with fries and whatever it is, the fatty, high carb, whatever now, and discount the future health consequences of that, which is like going to the movie. That's a pre-procreation problem. Or decisions of the variety: do I make the costly effort to diet now and get follow my doctor's orders for a future health payoff? So procrastination and pre-procreation show up in behavioral health a lot, and this is a huge issue for public policy because we wind up there are external costs if you don't take care of your health now. Right? Partly because if you wind up not being able to financially, the rest of us will, because we are civilized still a little bit, we will pick up the tab when you don't have insurance and wind up in the emergency room, because we're still not quite brutal enough as a civilization to leave you out in the cold. Right? And the spectacle last year of a bunch of firefighters standing around somewhere in rural Tennessee watching a house burn because we decided to adopt. Do you remember this? There was so typically everybody who lives anywhere near a fire station, the fire department will come out and put out their fire. There's a town in Tennessee that decided to implement sort of like one of these tough guy policies where they said, you know what? If you live in the county, you have to pay a $75 a year fee if you want to be covered by the fire department. And if you don't, to heck with you. Your house burns down, we're not going to come out. Okay, so this is just let people fend for themselves. Everybody has personal responsibility. If they don't pay the $75, to heck with them. And what happened was that somebody had not paid the $75, their house started to burn down. Somebody called the fire department. The fire department came out and then stood in the street and watched the house burn. You guys remember this? This was an extremely edifying spectacle for the nation as a whole because what we realized was that's not civilized. We don't want to do that anymore. That's ridiculous. So the idea of if you don't take care of your health now and you wind up later in life having a heart attack, not having insurance, going to the emergency room, we're not going to say no at the door of the emergency room. It's just a practical reality. We're just a little bit more civilized than that. We're going to pick up the tab. Okay? And what that means is that there are huge external consequences to your health behavior. And what that means is that it really matters whether you are making rational choices with respect to your health behavior. And if you're not, then public policy has potentially a role to improve outcomes, not just for you as an individual, but for everybody else as well. So I'm going to look at two applications of this beta-delta model. The first has to do with public health, and the second one has to do with retirement savings. Okay. Here's a paper that is on the website but not required, Delavine and Malmondier, 2006. These are two professors in our department. They happen to be married. Well, no, I shouldn't say they happen to be married. It's not a coincidence that they write papers together and are married. I think they're married because they wrote papers together in graduate school. In fact, this paper. Okay, so they got a bunch of data from some U.S. health clubs, actually in the Boston area, because they both got their degrees from Harvard. And here's what they found. Okay, so customers of these health clubs all had the same two options about how to pay for the services at the health club. Either they could pay a monthly fee and become a member, which would cost them $70 a month, and that would give them unlimited use of the gym. And I guess this must have been a pretty swanky gym. Or they could just not pay the membership and just pay $10 every time they showed up. Okay? What they found was that most gym goers chose the monthly contract, and then among the ones who chose the monthly contract, average attendance was 4.3 visits per month, which turns out to be about $17 per visit, which is significantly more than $10 per visit, which was something that an option that they could have chosen. Now, once you bought the contract, presumably you could still choose to pay $10 a visit. But basically, once you've chosen to enter into this monthly contract, unless you cancel your contract, that $10 per visit option is off the table. So if you've decided I'm someone for whom the monthly contract is going to be a better deal, you're kind of locked into that, right? At least for a short period of time.